Phil, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, hey Gemma, hope you're well. First of all, was Lily Allfield's football fern selection bittersweet for you
guys? Yeah, definitely. Obviously, we're stoked for her. I think she deserves it, and we're hoping that she gets even opportunities over there to play. Like, I think it'll be really good to test herself. We're really happy about it. Obviously it's tough. Like, she's the captain. It's hard to lose her. But at the same time as well, Bree's been really good in trainings and actually, from a 20s perspective as well. Like, it'd be really nice to see her and actually kind of see what she can bring to the game. So we're pretty excited to see Bree, but at the same time, tough to lose Lily.
Kate Taylor mentioned the other day that people say Brianna's got the best feet in the league in terms of goalkeepers. Is that actually true? Is that like a strength of her game?
I feel it's come from a story in a sub session where she was playing, and actually I think even herself said that she's got the best feet in the league. I feel like it's just like a running joke of something that she's named herself as and decided that she's got the best feet in the league. So we give her a lot of grief about it. So we'll see. She does have good feet. It is one of her strengths. But we'll see about best feet in the league when she has to play.
What does this mean for your reserve goalkeeper situation? Have you been able to kind of resolve that, or is it actually going to be a case of an outfield player? I mean, obviously this is in 2 games time, but there's a bit of time to work through that. But have you got a clear idea of what you'll do there?
Tough at the moment. So we've asked for an exemption. So we've officially put into APL a request to be able to replace Lily with somebody. And I think that formally got submitted the last couple of days. So we're just going to wait to hear back. I know the Phoenix have been speaking to the APL about it, and I think both parties know that, like, it's a situation that hasn't occurred yet for them, so they just haven't had to deal with it. But I personally don't think it's a good look for the team or the league to have an outfielder have to kit up to go on the bench. I think in terms of like professional standards, I don't think it looks great. And like, I just, in my head, I'm like, worst case scenario, if something happened to Bree and then all of a sudden we're having to ask an outfielder with 0 training to step up and go on the field, I think it looks a bit like a joke. We're trying to do everything we can to avoid that. We'll have to see.
Can you just clarify too, like, what is actually stopping you from signing a replacement? I know it's not an injury, but we've seen kind of players sign short-term deals from other teams. I don't know whether Melbourne Victory's American was a injury replacement for Callum Morrison, but is there actually nothing that you can just go sign an Australian player, for example?
No, not from the regulations. And it's funny because I look into every time somebody signs one, because I feel like there's short-term cover or guest players or everything else that's coming out of everywhere. So the American was an injury replacement for Kayla Morrison, and Victory actually came unstuck because when they looked deeper into the regulations, the injury replacement had to be it couldn't be an amateur, so it had to be a professional player out of contract, which again makes it so much tougher in the regulations to try and find. You can't just bring a train on that's been training and make them your injury replacement. You've then got to apparently find a professional that's out of contract, which is tough. But that's what Victory was saying last week. I'm not actually sure of that, but that's what they were saying is why it took them so long. But for us, the regulation is you can replace an international that goes on Matilda's duty. So we can't replace. That's the regulation, is because it's a Ferns appointment. The regulation technically says you can bring in a temporary replacement for anyone that gets called up for Matilda's duty.
But are you outside like a transfer window that you can't just sign an Australian player?
Yeah, so that in this league, in the I think it's the men's league, they have a transfer window, but in the women's league with the kind of short space, you can't sign like you can sign, I think there was a period where you could sign a guest player, but they still had to be registered within the window. And some teams had them already signed, but didn't announce them till later. But yeah, that's kind of the regulations as we've read them and understand them, and when we've queried it with the APL, that's what they've come back to us with.
Yeah, okay. And yeah, Lily was obviously the one player that got selected. Were you surprised that there weren't more?
Not specifically. Like, we talk a lot to Yitka, and I think it is hard. Like, we have a lot of players that are doing well, and I think they'll get their shot, even if it's not necessarily right now. I think right now, like, there's players that are doing well, but are being constantly challenged week in, week out here, and are probably like competing above and beyond the level and what was expected of them here. So there's also finding that mix, and for Yitka especially, of taking them too soon or taking them out of an environment where actually, with her Ferns cap on, they're being pushed and they're being challenged, and they still have 20s coming up. So yeah, I know she definitely views kind of like the people outside of 20s in a different space to the people that still have 20s to come. And obviously the players that will probably be looked at more, the Kate Taylors, the Alyssas, the people like that, still have 20s to really kind of be able to show what they can do in that capacity as well. So yeah, I think, yeah, I know people thought there might be more, and we definitely think there's players that can compete at that level, but I do think they'll be given the opportunity, even if it's not right now. I think that'll be the main thing. I like, from speaking to Yitka, I still think they'll get opportunities in a camp or a tour in previous months to come, even if it's not right now.
Yeah, because could there be an argument that it may be better for their development to stay with Phoenix and play, 70, 90 minutes rather than kind of go over there and not play?
Yeah, and to be honest, that's the discussion that's been had. And that's what I mean by, like, I think they'll get called on in future windows that are outside of the season that isn't going to disrupt as much, and probably then will still benefit their development, because then they're going to get a tour on top of, and they're going to get maybe some experience. But the chances are, if they got called up now, it would still be a great experience, a great training environment, and really good for them to be involved in. But how much game time would they get? Is it going to disrupt things too much? Like, right now, they are constantly being challenged. Like, I think even the good games that Kate's had, or the good games that Alyssa's had, you can't say they're not playing out of their skin, and they're being really challenged. So I think it's just trying to weigh up that. But again, like, I don't make the decisions, but I feel like that's the lens that it's come from.
Yeah, and in terms of playing Canberra, two winless teams trying to get their first win of the season. Obviously, for you guys, it's the first ever. Is this a game where you would be disappointed if you don't get that first win?
Yeah, like, to be honest, I feel that's the way I feel about the rest of our games. Like, I feel like the rest of our games are winnable, and I feel like if we walk away from each game, like, I'm probably going to walk away disappointed that we haven't been able to convert it into a win, or had a real look at why. Or is it back to consistency? Is it back to the things that we've been doing wrong in previous games? This one I think will be really interesting, though, because it's trying to find that balance between, they're still going to be expected to win. Like, we're still huge underdogs, especially in terms of player for player matchups. They have, like, very good visa players that offer something that we don't necessarily get access to. And it's, two winless teams. So they're 100% going to be targeting us. We definitely want to push them for a win. I feel like somebody's going to get their first win, but it definitely could go either way. But we 100% back ourselves and think we can win. But I think we can win against any of the teams we've got in the next 4 games. It's just, putting things together. And I think when I look at them, and you look at how many results or draws they've clawed out in the last 10 minutes, and then if you look at how many results we've thrown away in the last 10 minutes, it's going to be an interesting one to see who's improved in those areas, I think.
Yeah, and just one final one before I pass on to Andrew after asking 10 minutes worth of questions. Is everyone available? And obviously, Grace missed the last game. Kelly's been out with concussion. Where are those two players at?
Grace will be has made herself available, so has been training all week, and seems in better spirits. and we've been kind of checking in with her, so that's good. So she'll be available for selection. Kelly's still not available for selection. We actually were hoping she'd be available for this game. She got all the way into she was training a couple of sessions non-contact. So we were, and the idea was to have her cleared by the Canberra game, but she ended up getting symptoms in one of those sessions, so that means she goes back a step. And her going back a step meant she wasn't going to have enough time to get cleared for the Canberra game, which she was really gutted about, because I think in her head she had that game as a target, but you just can't push those things. So like this season has been really, really tough for Kelly. Like, I'm not going to lie about that. Like, it's been really tough. So yeah, she's not available. Annabelle also isn't available through injury. Kushla isn't available through injury. So those 3 players. So one other player is all we've got to decide from a selection point of view, and the 16 will almost select itself.
Maybe they'll get Kelly back on sideline commentary. She had a great line about trying to get the first win at Wynn Stadium, I think, the other day.
Yeah, I was wondering if the Phoenix men's last night were going to steal it,
Yeah.
Got a no victory for victory and a win at Win. So I wondered if they were going to try and use it, She's there to provide.
Yeah, no, it's all good. Thanks for that, and all the best.
Yeah, thanks, mate.
Hey, Gemma, what's the mood been like with the team this week? They know the situation in the league with Canberra being winless. Has that led to a change in approach, or is it something that's being talked amongst the players?
Yeah, like, it's really interesting. There's 100%, like, they're definitely in the frame of mind that they want to win. So and they talk about it openly. They want us as a staff to talk about it openly. They want us to, like, properly be, like, targeting this team and, like, pushing for the win. Obviously we always do, but more of a mindset shift, into this game would be ours to lose, and we want to push to win it. The balance I've been trying to find is the expectations and the complacency. So I don't, like, I think teams do it against us, where they look at us on footage and things like that, and they think that it's going to be fine to play against us. They know that we press and stuff like that, but they feel like they're going to play out. They feel like they're going to be okay. It's not till you play against us that you really experience it. So I don't want us to fall into that trap of looking at Canberra, being like, oh, they haven't won. There's an opportunity for us, and then we go into the game with expectations that maybe it's going to be a bit easier, because it's not. Like, it's going to be a really, really tough game. So trying to find the balance between, I 100% think we should be backing ourselves and having the confidence to talk about winning and saying that that's what we want to do and holding ourselves accountable to that. However, it's not going to be an easier game by any margin. So just trying to find that balance this week of instilling belief, but under a fact that we're still going to have to play out of our skin, and it's not going to be just gifted to us. That's been the juggle this week.
Just talking about a couple of players who got mentioned a bit, Alyssa and Kate. Last winter they were playing in a league where their teams finished up with, like, ridiculous records, plus 70 goal difference. They were winning by massive scores, which really, shows, I guess, the work that's being done on an individual level down there in Canterbury. But, they obviously can't go back to that competition, to that level, once they finish up playing here. I know you've got your 4 games to go, but what sort of conversations have there been about, where some of these players go to in between, after this season? And is getting some of them into Australian, NPL, Victoria, New South Wales, is that something that's on the table? Or
it's things that have been looked at. To be honest, like, we're in this unique situation as well, where the partnership between the New Zealand football and the Phoenix means we have this unique opportunity as well to try and maybe to put a program together in the off season to still cater for everyone back in New Zealand, if that was the choice for them to come back into New Zealand. And that would be, like, obviously a similar program to, I guess, what FFDPs used to look like, but with obviously more of, I guess, a mindset to the Phoenix. So there's that kind of that we've been building in the background, and it would almost be like that this transition period of that 1 year where we'd have this program to be able to run for them that could cater for them in the short term before everything kind of gets transitioned to the Phoenix the following year. And they have obviously the academy set up, the off-season program, and they're catered for a little bit more. So yeah, like NPL has been looked at. The New South Wales NPL is definitely the strongest. But like I still think we can do better. And I still think that we would look after those individual players and be able to develop them a lot more if we had them. And I also think there's some sort of, I guess, we'd be the only program that would almost get like a full-time off-season program and be working with them. It's like we get this little bit of a head start. We probably had the least preseason ever this time around. Whereas next season, if we run an off-season program, we could get with, say, the kind of 13 or so players that would be back in New Zealand, and some players that we'd be looking at for the future. Maybe you could get like a head start of having like an off-season program where you get the ability to work with them all year round. So yeah, that's kind of the stuff that's been working on in the background. The other thing we look at for players that that probably not the 20s group that maybe are just turned 18, but that older group, trying to link them in with some Scandinavian teams because the seasons match up really well. So even looking at like Swedish second division, which is still like a really good standard, even though it's not Swedish top league. But even those opportunities to try and have them playing in the off season in European leagues that match up to be able to then come back into the A-League. So those are the things that have been looked at post, obviously, the 4 weeks.
And then the last thing I just wanted to ask about was the 20s. If you put that hat on, obviously there is a core group of players that are in this team. Ava, who's been in the Ferns, she's still in that age group. Yeah, would you sort of see that sort of off-season program being built around that, top tier of 20s players as well? And, you can have a break between, the season ending and starting up whatever you start in Auckland?
Yeah, that's a tough one. We're trying to put the calendar together. I think by nature, like it would be like a core 20s group. Ava, like she'll be managed because me and Yitka work together on what her calendar will look like for next year. Because she'll be obviously in majority of the windows with the Ferns, and obviously it's still at college, so we're working out when we can have her versus when we can't and what she's available for. But we would get the likes of like a Marisa, who would be able to kind of come back in. And that also gives us a little bit of a handle to maybe have her in our environment a little bit more, and see what she's doing for next season as well. So yeah, it would kind of, I guess, that partnership of New Zealand football and the Phoenix, that's what that off season, I guess, would kind of look like. It's that blend of, it kind of does cater for giving the 20s something extra, but it also allows for them to have more of an off-season program that doesn't rely on them having to go back to the domestic game in New Zealand, so to speak.
Yeah, and you touched on it a bit, but talking to Yitka about some of these young players who perhaps should have been in the frame. It seems there's very firmly a plan in place to let this 20s campaign take place, and then there's potentially room for, I guess, docking, for want of a better word, once that's finished in August.
Yeah, definitely. I think that Yitka's quite big on like, I think especially because she's been a 20s coach in the past herself, she sees like how big the 20s is from a shop window point of view, for like bigger leagues and everything else. It's kind of like a tournament where teams pick up like those next big youth players that are coming through, and she sees it as an opportunity for them to like be successful, and also a good telltale sign for her as well, in terms of like, okay, but to be able to step into the senior World Cup level, you need to be able to perform at a 20s level. So it's that opportunity she sees where they're still catered for. They're still going to have international games, and they're still going to be monitored. So she gets this whole season to watch them play A-League, which she watches all the games. She actually even watches our trainings and stuff and has access to that. So she watches all their games and trainings here, and then they'll flip straight into kind of 20s mode. She gets to see them at 20s in August, and then maybe they'll get opportunities in a window or so in between now and then. And then that'll be kind of a bonus for her to see them within the environment. But the priority will still be kind of, can you perform at a 20s level? Let's see what you can do. And then let's transition you in.
And domestic football starts back up here next weekend, Kate Shepherd Cup semi-finals, unusually. Yeah, what sort of, in terms of that 20s sort of environment, what sort of contact and messaging have you been able to have with the players who aren't, you know, an A-League woman or away at colleges, the ones that are still going to make up the squad from back here?
Yeah, we've had kind of a few group connects whilst we've been over here, which has been good. And then some individual catch-ups as well. Like we have different players in different environments right now, like Emma Pijnenberg's in Holland at the moment. You know, there's different players, some are in the States, some are, you know, looking at other options, some are training in boys academies, you know, there's all these different things. So it's kind of, we just have touch points to collate and kind of work together to make sure we're still in contact and we're still working towards what's going to happen this year. And the main frame has been constantly still trying to like view or get footage, even if it's training footage, get in contact with them to make sure that there's still monitoring. Because to be honest, this year we'll be narrowing down the squad pretty quickly because we kind of want to hone in on working towards and shifting focus rather than to identifying players and choosing your team, and more towards preparing for the World Cup. Because we've been over here, obviously, those windows really are going to be like time together in April at some point, time together in July, potentially pre-tour games before the World Cup, and then gone. So that window is going to shrink really, really quickly. So yeah, we have had a few kind of group connects and then some individual connects just to kind of keep monitoring as much as we can. It's going to be really beneficial for us to have players start up playing as well, because we're going to get more access to footage and things like that as well.
And just to finish, I was talking to David Dome on Friday. He said, you know, we've said to Gemma, tell us what you need for season 2. You know, what things would be at the top of your shopping list or your wish list?
Oh, I got so much. First of all, I said, well, tell me if I'm coaching. I was like, and I'll tell you what I need. But no, I like, to be perfectly honest, like I've talked about like increasing squad size. Like I think we've obviously had the minimum from a squad point of view, and I think that and being away from home has been tough because we don't get the same access to train on players and things like that. So that's been tough. So challenged back with bigger squad size. I've challenged back with things that I don't even know that will change, but re-looking at the regulations to see if we can get any shift on having like access to a couple of visa players or increase in New Zealand players, because that'll make a huge difference. And then like, yeah, all the bells and whistles that you want. I want to be back in Wellington. I want to have a bigger player budget. I want to have all sorts of stuff. Shopping list is big. So I'm just trying to prioritize because I'll probably only get a couple of them. But yeah, it's just basically, I think the one thing that's happened, and it's been really, really positive, is that there's definitely, like from the Phoenix especially, like they want to put the investment in and realize, I think everyone is realizing that with a few changes, and obviously regulations hamstring us a little bit, but we can definitely compete in this league if things are done in a certain way. And things for me like bigger playing size, access to maybe some visa players, we get this off-season program. I think all of that stuff lends its hand to us being more prepared, us having like a better mix of players where we've got some experience along with the current players that we're developing, leads to us like being able to compete a lot more next season. So yeah, Phoenix have been really positive with it, which is why obviously he's asked the question of what tell us what you need and what you want and what you would need to kind of continue this and develop and succeed, and we'll have a look at what's realistic and what's not. So I think any team that's willing to come to the party with that and figure out how to improve things, is a real positive to me. And we even had conversations with Rob Morrison, and it was the same frame. Like, what do you need? What does this team need? What are you missing? And they've been really, really positive in trying to alleviate barriers and add investment into the women's game. So I think that's quite exciting to see what's going to come of that.
Yeah. So just because you touched on it at the top, I talked to David for 30, 40 minutes. It's all Gemma this, Gemma that. And, it's like, well, is she going to be the coach or not? Has there been any sort of further progress in that regard, or is it something?
Not yet. But I think it's this weird thing, right? And we're all trying to work through it. That partnership at the moment, like this first 2 years with New Zealand football and the Phoenix. So Domi and Robert, but basically in a space of being like, we need to get this sorted. Let's talk to New Zealand football. So it's kind of like, it's not the norm of where the Phoenix would just be like, sweet, here's your contract and this is what it'll look like. It's we need to clarify with New Zealand football and check the right boxes and then push ahead. So that's what's being done at the moment. So hopefully we'll figure that out in the next week or so. But they're very much, I think, because the main thing that we've been pushing is the fact that once this season ends, the players that have shone this season will get tapped up straight away by other teams. So we need to be ahead of the curve. If we want to carry on working with and developing and nurturing these players and holding on to assets that we currently have, then we need to be on the front foot.
No, cool. Thank you very much.
All good, mate.
Just a final one. Could you just confirm when Lily travels and when she's going to due back?
So I'm pretty sure her flight's the day after the Canberra game. So that's sweet for us. I think Canberra didn't think she was going to be available, but she travels Saturday, and then she gets back, I think, on the 26th. She doesn't. I don't know exact date. Sorry, but I know she doesn't. She misses one game. She misses the Adelaide game.
Okay.
No, you're back on, Gemma. That's right. Yeah, leave Saturday night and back on the 26th, the day before the Wanderers game.
Just pulled that out of nowhere. but that's what I had in my mind for some reason. So yeah.
Would she like booking the travel out there, Brenton? Sorry.
I was just going to say, would she likely play that game then if she arrives the day before?
It depends on a few things. Depends on how she travels. Depends on what she gets when she's away as well. Like if she's playing heaps and training heaps, then and she comes back, maybe not. Depends on where Bree's at and how she's feeling. And she also still has to return negative rat tests and stuff as well on her prior to her travels and when she gets back as well. So few things to play. I'm not going to sit here and rule it out. But yeah, it'll definitely depend on how much she's used and how busy she is and how she travels.
Yeah, Bree's got the best feet in the league, so she might get a
goal. Exactly. I can't wait to tell her about this. She's going to be so dark that this has got out. Kate Taylor's dropped her in it massively. Thanks, mate.
Cool. Thank you.
All good. Speak to you soon.
Cheers, Phil. Cheers, Andrew. Gemma,
guys.
just quickly from me, Annabelle's injury, what is it?
So it's just a slight lateral meniscus tear. Okay, that means nothing to me, but physios and medical staff have said maybe 2 weeks.
Okay, cool. Thanks
Sweet.
for that.
Thank
Much
you.
Appreciated.